Hey everybody, how are you today? Today for science we are working on Unit 7, Lesson 3. Okay, so make sure you make a note of that so you know which lesson you're taking the checkpoint for. All right, so one more time, we're doing Unit 7, Lesson 3. It's on phylogenetic trees and the kingdoms of life. The pages you will be using in your textbook, this textbook, okay, are pages 16, 17, 18, and 19. So the objectives today are to understand the 6 kingdoms, okay? They are Archaebacteria, Eubacteria, Protista, Fungi, Planta, and Animalia. You're probably like, huh, what's all that? Well, we're going to talk more about that as we do our lesson. But scientists classify all life on Earth into one of these 6 kingdoms that I just read to you. So we're going to start learning about this whole classification adventure, and we're going to learn a little bit more about each of the 6 kingdoms. So the science of genetics, okay, boys and girls, I'm sure you've heard that word before, but the science of genetics explains why some organisms are more similar than others. It also explains why members of the same families tend to have similar characteristics. They may look alike, they may act alike, or you might have a little bit of both. Even if you think about your own family, you can think about how you may look alike, how there are things that you do very similar, but there are things that you do very differently. So to help you in your lessons, you can go ahead and click right here on the video to listen to the animal classification song. You know how much we love songs. They do help us to understand a little bit better, so check that out. But let's go ahead and open our book to page 16. Okay, page 16, we're going to begin reading about the kingdoms of life and understanding life's family tree. So boys and girls, grab your book if you can't see what's on the whiteboard here and read it with me. Okay, as we've been reading about already, Carolus Linnaeus. Linnaeus used classification as an organizing tool to keep track of Earth's different organisms. Today, scientists use classification to represent how organisms are related to each other and life's family tree. Genetics is a branch of science that studies these relationships between organisms. Key point, you may need this for your notebook. Genetics is a branch of science that studies these relationships between organisms. In genetics, scientists study genes, the chemical directions for making an organism. So boys and girls, genes are the chemical directions for making organisms. Genes are found in every cell of every organism. When organisms reproduce, they pass on their genes to their offspring. Thus, an offspring's genes, the directions to make its body, are a combination of the genes of its parents. Yep, that's exactly what happened to you. The genes of your parents help to make up who you are. Scientists compare the genes of different organisms to learn how they are related. In general, the more similar the genes of 2 organisms are, the more closely the organisms are related. Siblings with the same parents, for example, puppies from the same litter, are closely related and have nearly identical genes. Organisms that share a set of grandparents are less closely related. They have slightly different genes. A sunflower and a worm are not at all closely related and have very different genes. Once the genetic relationships between organisms are understood, scientists can draw a phylogenetic tree, or phylogenetic tree, like a family tree, that shows the relationships. Scientists can also extract genes from fossils. Oh, I think that's a key word, boys and girls. Let's read that again. Scientists can also extract genes from fossils, the preserved remains of ancient organisms. Keyword right there might help you with one of your pages in your notebook. Comparing the genes from fossils to those from animals living today suggests that modern species are distantly related to ancient organisms. Though Linnaeus knew nothing about genetics when developing taxonomy, his classification system does a good job of representing the relationships between organisms. He grouped organisms according to similar characteristics, and for the most part, organisms with similar genes also have similar characteristics. In a few cases, however, having similar characteristics does not mean that organisms are closely related. For example, birds and insects both have wings, but birds' genes are quite different from insect genes. Therefore, these animals are not at all closely related. So boys and girls, before you move on to the next slide, you can hit pause on the video and take a look at some of the diagrams that you find on page 16 and 17. Right here, okay, this is an example of a phylogenetic tree. Okay, it illustrates the relationships between organisms, much the way a family tree shows relationships between members of a family. Here, you can see a life tree shows the relationship of organisms throughout Earth's history. If you begin at the top left where it says life, as you move to the right, each new branch indicates the development of a new kind of organism. The pictures of each branch illustrate life today and how things have come about. Isn't that amazing? All right, now let's turn to pages 18 and 19. This is going to be an important 2 pages in your textbook because they're going to help you to answer some of the questions in your interactive notebook on slides 9 and 10. So the 6 kingdoms of life. Today, organisms are placed into kingdoms based on the general characteristics they share and their degree of relatedness with with other members of that kingdom. Not all organisms fit neatly into one kingdom. However, because of this, scientists disagree about how many kingdoms there should be and how some organisms should be classified. This book follows a system in which life is organized into 6 kingdoms. Kingdom Archaebacteria, Kingdom Eubacteria, Kingdom Protista, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Planta, and Kingdom Animalia. Archaebacteria are simple organisms made up of single prokaryotic cells. They live in very extreme environments, such as deep sea vents where there is no oxygen. Archae means ancient, and scientists think that Archaebacteria were among the first living organisms. So boys and girls, important, there's our first kingdom, Archaebacteria. Our second is Eubacteria. This is all going to be important stuff, so pay close attention. Eubacteria include all other single-celled prokaryotic organisms. They are the true bacteria and can be found everywhere on Earth. Some help to break down food and dead organisms into useful nutrients. Others can be harmful and cause disease. Next, protists. Protists, including algae, protozoa, let me get my pointer so you can follow with me. Protists, including algae, protozoa, and slime molds, are the smallest organisms made from eukaryotic cells. Most are single-celled. They live wherever it is wet. Evidence suggests that protists evolved from bacteria. Some species, in turn, evolved into animals, plants, and fungi, which leads us to our next kingdom. Our next kingdom of life is fungi. Fungi, including mushrooms, molds, and yeasts, are eukaryotic organisms. Their cells have walls. They don't eat the way animals do, but absorb nutrients from plants and animals, dead and alive. They can grow very quickly and are essential to the health of the natural world. Plants. Plants, including trees, grasses, and shrubs, are multi-celled eukaryotic organisms. Most live on land, but evidence suggests that they evolved from algae. Their cells have walls and contain chlorophyll, a substance that makes them green. Chlorophyll helps plants make their own food through a chemical reaction called photosynthesis. And then our last kingdom of life, boys and girls, is animals, Animalia. Animals, including mammals, insects, and fish, are multi-celled eukaryotic organisms. Their cells have membranes but lack cell walls. They have to eat plants and other animals for food. Animals are the most mobile organisms. Most can slither, crawl, swim, walk, run, climb, or even fly. All right, so boys and girls, have you ever created a family tree, or maybe your family has one? Maybe your parents have one that was created for them by one of their ancestors. So Have you ever looked at one? Have you asked yourself, what do I know about my grandparents? What do I know about my grandparents' grandparents? Do you think you have much in common with your great-great-great-grandmother or great-great-great-grandfather? Researching your ancestors and drawing your own family tree can give you lots of answers about those who came before you, your ancestors, your great-great-greats. Okay? That's kind of how we learn about our kingdoms of life. And we use those trees to help us to see how the life has developed over all these years. Scientists who study genetics also study relationships between living things. Every living organism has genes, and genes determine how things look. Genes can often determine how things behave too. Comparing the genes of different organisms shows how different things are related to each other. So, in each photo, boys and girls, can you tell whether the organisms are close genetically? So let's take a look at this first image, these flowers in the field. The flowers are genetically related. They're flowers, though they are both different species, okay? Then we have these two children. Children are closely related because they're both human, but they come from different families. However, in this case, the lynx, these lynx cubs, they're most closely related because they have the same parents. And we get that, kind of like your second cousins. So, or you and your sibling are closer than like you and your cousins because they don't share the same parents, okay? But you're still from that same family, just a little bit more distant, not as closely related. So boys and girls, take a minute, turn to this section in the breakout room and watch the classifying animals lesson. It's a great little lesson. Then there's a video here to show you about the different colors of apples. How much do you know about apples and how they grow? Did you know that you can change the classification of apples to new ones by planting their seeds? Watch this video. It is pretty cool. All you have to do is click, and it will open. The links are live in the breakout room, so be sure to check that out. When you click on that link, okay, and you go, it'll take you to this page. Real quickly, I want to show you. All right, so boys and girls, when you get here, all you have to do is click X out, and then click on the video, and it will come up and it'll play for you. Okay? All right, excellent day. So your exit ticket for today, you're going to complete the lesson checkpoint in the online school for lesson 3. You're going to complete slides 9 and 10 if you are in Mrs. Reeser's class. If you are in my class, you're going to complete slides 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So you're going to try and complete all of those, get those finished before lesson 4. So for my class, it's going to be slides 9 through 13. You have all the tools in your book to help you. Good luck and have fun. Thanks, guys.